Joining us now is Garth Bray from Business Desk. Thanks to our partners 2 Degrees, and we're talking mining because the latest mining company to show interest here is comparing Otago to West Africa, one of the world's largest gold producing regions. Garth, well, I mean, it's a good comparison, I suppose.
It's a great headline getter, and I guess if you're in the business like this junior Canadian miner, so they're a mining company that hasn't actually dug any gold up yet in New Zealand and is basically just selling news on the idea that there is stuff there under its prospective areas, you go for big headlines, right? But I actually pulled a map up from them, which I'd love to share with you because it's quite fascinating. This shows some of their permits. They're the ones in red and green. And then you've got some of the others, Oceana and Her McRae's and Santana, which is that purple one. Quite a big territory that they are looking around, central Otago, prospecting for gold. That is a map that will probably bring cheers to some and fears to others, I would have thought.
So so the ones that they're prospecting now, you said they're a junior... so they haven't
found anything, they haven't dug anything, they're not mining yet. But they
anywhere or just here?
Well, they're a company that's pretty much focused on New Zealand. So
right.
There you go.
Oh, right. So they're a
company. But
company...
they're Canadian listed, and they've come here basically saying, hey, look, it's on. It's, I guess, what some of the more established miners would call nearology, which is you see where someone is doing something, and if you put your mine near it, there's a good chance you might find some gold.
Okay.
But I guess they're looking at a whole lot of sophisticated geology and geography and saying this area compares favourably, they would say, with this area, the Birimian Greenstone Belt of West Africa, which covers Ghana right through to Burkina Faso. Look at it on the map if you want to find it, but it's basically that sort of western chunk of Africa. And that's a region that 35 years ago there wasn't much going on gold mining wise, and now there's absolutely heaps. So they seem to be saying they're right at the front of the queue to jump on all of this.
All right. And some of the bigger miners are using the fast-track approval process, which we spoke about this morning.
Yeah. Parliament's looking at amending that at the moment, and there's a bit of concern around that just because the process has really been crunched down. Chief amongst those would be the Commissioner for the Environment, Simon Upton, who's no lightweight, former National Cabinet Minister. And he's basically expressed some concerns that the way that the amendments have been put through on this to try and tweak it, I think, as Chris Bishop was talking about earlier, in the process, effectively make it, some of the approvals will be all but inevitable, that the time you're crunching it down into for these panels to look at various other environmental, heritage or other concerns mean that, there's not enough time, you might as well get rid of them. And they're also a wee bit worried about these government policy statements, which is the ability for the government to issue sort of a directive over predefine what constitutes a regional or a national benefit for something like, hey, coal mining is generally great. So, and that panels would have to then take that into account, and that effectively is...
So who doesn't like this?
Well, any number of submitters, I suppose. And you would say, this is in the in the very tight process they've got to try and say something about this, because it was only about 11 days worth of tell us what you think about these law changes. They're trying to get it through before Christmas, although that's been challenged. The Parliamentary Select Committee, that we're not sure if they actually got clear approval.
We'll see. Now, MPs have agreed on congestion charges, although it's going to be ages. In fact, what's his name? Williamson, Morris, said it could be realistically 3 to 4 years before you see a congestion charge actually take place in Auckland.
That would depend a little bit on how quickly they build stuff. You know that they wanted to bring this in time for the CRL opening up, because obviously that's when there's going to be heaps more opportunity to travel on trains, and they're trying to push people that way. You're right, there's a lot of outlay, and the piece we've got today sort of runs into some of that. We're talking about sort of tens of millions of dollars per gantry that you would put over the motorway that are like those ones that are at the opposite ends of the tollway to catch who's going through.
Yep.
There are slightly cheaper options if you want to relocate them on pillars, but effectively you need about 20 or 30 of these points around, say, a city like Auckland to ring off the CBD. So you could then charge people $3 to $5 basically for a trip, depending on whether it was sort of right in the peak or at the shoulder. But they reckon, congestion is probably costing anywhere between sort of 900 million and 1.3 billion a year in lost productivity. So, and if you can funnel the money back into, buses and trains and that kind of stuff as the law requires, they reckon overseas, most people have hated this for the first 12 months, and then most of them have been okay with it.
Get used to it. Get on with it. Thanks, Garth. Good to see you. Garth Bray from Business Desk. Thanks to our partners 2 Degrees.